Congressman John Garamendi joins us right now, California Democrat. Sir, good to have you. What do you think of this reporting of our own Charlie Gasparino that the president's set to declare an emergency and move on here?
Well, just following on with the previous conversation, Mexico's not going to pay for it. The way it's headed right now is that the victims of the various disasters, whether they are in Florida or Texas or California or Puerto Rico, those are the people that are going to wind up paying for this, that the disaster relief that we have appropriated would not be available to them, but rather go into building this wall. That is just unbelievable, but very, very much like Trump. Beyond that, there is no need for a disaster, for an emergency declaration. What we need to do is for the Senate and the President to adopt the legislation that we just completed this week that would open up all of the government except for, including the Department of Homeland Security. But the Homeland Security would then have to come back by February the 8th with some plan about the wall.
That was the original plan, right? That was the measure that was going to go to the Senate. Mitch McConnell scrapped the vote because he said the president would never sign it. So what kind of appetite is there for that?
Well, there's certainly an appetite in the House of Representatives. We passed that legislation. It is now done. It's over on the Senate side.
So you think it might have a better go this go around? Could I ask you, Congress, too? I didn't mean to jump on you there. No. Do you buy this plan that's being proposed by a number of Republican congressmen? I think all Republicans. I could be wrong. Where they're saying they would use the monies taken from drug lords and federal seizures of drug property and funds and use that for a wall.
I have no idea how much money that is. I would suppose that it is probably less than $100 million. Maybe it's more, but how much of a wall would that do?
They say it's into the billions. I've not been able to confirm that, but that's what they say.
Well, let's have a look at it. But the appropriate point here is that it is Congress that is appropriating the money. That is the constitutional requirement. The Constitution really doesn't allow the president to appropriate money. That's our task. In this case, the president is, by all accounts, in the process of appropriating money that has already been allocated for these programs. The number that was used earlier, the $35 billion of unspent money, that money actually has been dedicated to specific projects. Those projects, the contracts,
no doubt, but both parties have taken already appropriated funds and used them. In fact, the best example of that is both parties that have raided the Social Security Trust Fund for a variety of other purposes with IOUs. I'm not justifying it, but it's not as if it's unprecedented. Right?
Actually, it's quite different. The trust fund is an annual ongoing appropriation for which the Congress does not act. The specific $30 billion that was noted a few moments ago, those are actual projects. The barracks at West Point are but one example. The flood control projects, the rebuilding following the devastating hurricanes and fires, those have actually been laid out. Those Congress has said these are the projects that we want to fund. The money has been provided for them. However, the contracts to actually do the construction have not yet been signed.
I guess what I'm saying, Congressman, is when monies were appropriated for Obamacare when it was first starting, they would take appropriations that were part of Medicare, Medicaid, and put it into this. All I'm saying is that
as provided by law.
I understood, but I'm just saying that was a new thing that was put up as that law before it was law was being cooked up. So it's not unprecedented for Washington. I'm not justifying. I think it's sloppy accounting to justify taking from Peter to give to Paul, right?
Well, it depends how you're in the process of doing it. The Medicaid and the program that you just said was specifically authorized by law. In this particular case, the president claims that he does have the power to move these appropriations from one particular use, whether it is disaster relief in the case of the Army Corps of Engineers Civil Works or the Army's military construction. Those are projects that are specifically authorized by Congress. And the president is apparently claiming that he can take that money and spend it on a border wall. And I'm saying, well, what about the people that need that money to recover from these disasters?
Got it. All right, Congressman, we'll watch very closely. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Look forward to our next conversation.
So do I.